At the deepest parts of the ocean, animals exist that look nothing like the creatures most people imagine when they think of marine life. Some fish carry teeth longer than their own skulls. Others grow transparent heads so their eyes can look upward through their own bodies. Some produce flashes of blue light in complete darkness. Others drift through the water as colonies, so long they can stretch farther than many whales. And scientists are still discovering new ones because the largest living space on Earth lies far below the surface of the ocean in a world humans have barely explored. Even today, researchers estimate that more than 80% of the ocean has never been directly observed or mapped in detail. Vast regions exist where no camera has ever looked and no human instrument has remained long. A few hundred meters below the surface, sunlight begins to fade. By about 1,000 meters, it disappears completely. Below that point lies a realm of permanent darkness. Temperatures hover just above freezing. Pressure increases with depth until the force becomes strong enough to crush unprotected equipment. Food arrives only rarely, drifting down from the distant world above. For a long time, scientists believed such conditions could support only the simplest forms of life. But when cameras and submersibles finally began exploring these depths, the images they returned revealed something very different. Creatures with bodies built for darkness, animals that generate their own light, predators with jaws that can expand wide enough to swallow prey nearly their own size, and in some places, entire ecosystems survive without sunlight at all, powered instead by chemical energy rising from deep within the earth. Each time researchers descend farther into this hidden world, they often encounter species that science has never seen before. So what strange forms of life are still hiding in the largest habitat on our planet? Tonight, we explore the bizarre creatures living at the bottom of the ocean. Water above water, layer upon layer, the ocean forms a vertical landscape that deepens far beyond the familiar surface. Each descent reveals another quiet boundary where conditions shift almost imperceptibly at first, then more profoundly as the distance from sunlight grows. What appears from above as a single body of water gradually unfolds into distinct regions, each shaped by subtle balances of light, temperature, pressure, and energy. Closest to the surface lies the sunlit zone, a broad upper layer where daylight penetrates freely and the sea remains in constant conversation with the sky. Here drifting plankton harvest light and convert it into chemical energy, forming the invisible foundation that supports countless forms of marine life. Schools of fish move through these bright waters, and the ocean seems vibrant with motion and color. As depth increases, brightness softens into a dim blue twilight. The glow from above fades gradually, leaving behind a muted environment where outlines blur and colors dissolve into shades of gray. This middle region, known as the mesopelagic zone, stretches downward for hundreds of meters. Animals here often possess enlarged eyes, capable of detecting faint glimmers that drift from the distant surface. Beyond this layer, the ocean enters a region where sunlight can no longer reach. At depths near 1,000 meters and below, natural illumination disappears entirely. The water becomes permanently dark, untouched by the daily rhythm of sunrise or sunset. Time passes here without the signals that guide life closer to the surface. While the loss of light transforms the visual world, another force becomes steadily more powerful with every step downward. Pressure in the ocean increases because each deeper layer must support the weight of all the water above it. For every 10 meters of descent, the surrounding force rises by roughly 1 atmosphere. At depths measured in thousands of meters, the compression becomes immense. This pressure presses inward from every direction with equal intensity. Air-filled spaces collapse instantly under such force, and rigid structures fracture unless specially reinforced. Organisms that live here avoid these dangers through bodies composed largely of fluids and soft tissues. Without internal pockets of gas, their cells remain balanced against the pressure surrounding them. Temperature also settles into a stable coldness as depth increases. Far from the warming influence of sunlight, the water remains only a few degrees above freezing. This steady chill slows many biological processes, shaping how animals grow, move, and reproduce. Perhaps the most important transformation concerns the availability of energy. Near the surface, sunlight fuels the growth of microscopic plants that support the entire marine food web. In deeper regions, that source of energy disappears. Without photosynthesis, new organic matter cannot form locally. Instead, nourishment arrives from distant waters above. Tiny fragments of organic debris drift downward through the ocean, settling slowly through the water column. These particles include the remains of plankton, microscopic shells, and delicate flakes of organic material that sink gradually toward deeper layers. By the time these particles reach great depths, much of their original energy has already been consumed along the way. Only a small fraction continues its journey downward. Life in the deep ocean therefore survives on limited resources that arrive slowly and unpredictably. Over millions of years, these conditions have guided the evolution of animals uniquely suited to their surroundings. Many species develop slow metabolisms that conserve energy between meals. Bodies often become soft and flexible, capable of enduring immense pressure without damage. Sensory systems adapt to detect faint vibrations, chemical signals, or subtle movements within the surrounding water. In this vast vertical world, each layer quietly shapes the life that inhabits it. Light fades, pressure rises, temperature steadies, and food becomes scarce. Together, these forces create an environment unlike any other on Earth, where survival depends on adaptations formed through long patience beneath the ocean's immense weight. In the deep water far below familiar seas, a long, delicate form sometimes drifts through the darkness like a living thread. It may appear to be a single creature, moving quietly with the slow motion of surrounding currents. Yet this remarkable being is not one animal at all, but a colony composed of many individuals joined together in perfect coordination. This drifting structure belongs to a group known as Siphonophores. At first glance, they resemble enormous translucent ribbons or chains suspended in the water, faintly glowing and almost invisible, except when light catches their fragile bodies. Some colonies extend to extraordinary lengths. Scientific observations have recorded individuals stretching between 40 and 50 meters from end to end, longer than many whales that pass through the upper ocean. Despite this immense size, a siphonophore is not built like most animals. Instead of organs contained within a single body, it forms from hundreds or even thousands of tiny units known as zooids. Each zooid begins life as a genetically identical copy of the same original organism. As the colony grows, these individuals develop into specialized forms that perform different roles. Some zooids function as swimming bells, contracting rhythmically to move the entire colony forward through the water. Others form long feeding structures, equipped with stinging cells capable of capturing small fish or drifting crustaceans. Additional units handle digestion, reproduction, or structural support. None of these individuals could survive alone. Each one performs a single task, contributing to the survival of the entire colony. Together, they create something that behaves very much like a single organism. Movements occur with remarkable coordination. Swimming bells pulse in sequence, guiding the colony gently through the surrounding water. Feeding tentacles extend outward in long trailing lines, forming a nearly invisible net that drifts behind the main body. When prey brushes against these delicate filaments, specialized cells release microscopic harpoons loaded with venom. The captured animal becomes entangled and slowly drawn toward digestive zooids positioned along the colony's length. Nutrients are then shared through a continuous internal canal system that distributes energy to every individual unit. The architecture of a siphonophore colony often appears intricate and symmetrical, almost like a living chandelier suspended in the deep sea. Transparent tissues allow faint glimmers of bioluminescent light to ripple along the structure when disturbed. These soft flashes illuminate the colony briefly before fading again into darkness. Although siphonophores can reach extraordinary lengths, they remain remarkably fragile. Their bodies consist largely of water and delicate gelatinous tissue that tears easily when disturbed. For this reason, they were rarely observed intact in early ocean research, since traditional nets often damaged them before scientists could examine their true form. Only in recent decades have submersibles and remotely operated vehicles revealed their full elegance. High-definition cameras drifting quietly beside these colonies have captured images of structures extending far beyond the limits once imagined. One remarkable species observed during deep exploration near Australia formed a spiral colony estimated at nearly 47 meters long, arranged in a graceful coil that slowly rotated within the surrounding water. Through this unusual construction, siphonophores demonstrate a form of life that blurs familiar boundaries between individual and collective existence. Each zooid retains its own structure, yet none can function independently. The colony lives through cooperation so complete that its many parts appear indistinguishable from a single organism. Within the stillness of the deep ocean, these long colonies drift with quiet patience, suspended in the currents that move slowly through the dark. Their bodies stretch across distances that seem improbable for creatures so delicate, a reminder that life in the deep sea often follows designs unlike anything found closer to the sunlit world above. Among the quiet inhabitants of the deep ocean, one small fish carries a feature so unusual that for many years scientists doubted the early descriptions of it. Specimens lifted from the depths revealed a head shaped like a smooth dome, clear and delicate, almost like glass. Through this transparent shield, the internal structures of the fish could be seen, including a pair of vivid green eyes resting inside the skull. This animal is known as the Barreleye fish, a name inspired by the tubular shape of those remarkable eyes. Unlike the forward-facing vision common among many fish, the eyes of the Barreleye are directed upward. From within their transparent chamber, they peer toward the water above, quietly observing the faint silhouettes that drift through the upper darkness. The dome itself is composed of a clear, fluid-filled shield that protects the eyes while allowing light to pass freely inside. Early researchers believed the eyes remained fixed in this upward position, always staring toward the distant surface. Later observations revealed something far more intricate. Within the dome, the eyes can slowly rotate, turning forward when the fish needs to focus directly on nearby food. This movement allows the Barreleye to balance two different ways of sensing its surroundings. While drifting through the deep water, it keeps watch above for the faint outlines of animals swimming overhead. When prey approaches within reach, the eyes pivot forward so the fish can track the movement directly in front of its mouth. Such an unusual arrangement reflects the environment where the Barreleye lives. In the dim layers far beneath the surface, many small animals drift slowly downward from higher waters. These passing silhouettes become easier to detect when viewed against the faint glow filtering from above. By gazing upward through its transparent dome, the Barreleye can notice these subtle shapes long before they pass beyond reach. The fish itself remains small and delicate, usually only a few centimeters in length. Its body carries soft fins and a narrow tail that allow it to hover quietly in the water with very little motion. This stillness reduces the chance of alerting the drifting animals it hopes to capture. Within the clear dome, the bright green color of the eyes comes from pigments that filter incoming light. These pigments help the fish distinguish faint movements against the dim background of the water above. Through this specialized vision, the Barreleye can separate the gentle shimmer of the ocean from the quiet approach of potential prey. Despite the strangeness of its appearance, the Barreleye remained largely mysterious for much of scientific history. Most early specimens were collected by nets that brought them rapidly to the surface. The sudden change in pressure damaged the fragile dome, leaving researchers uncertain about how the fish truly looked in its natural environment. Only in recent decades did underwater cameras finally reveal the animal alive in the depths. Remotely operated vehicles, moving carefully through deep water, recorded images of Barreleye fish hovering almost motionless, their clear heads reflecting the soft glow of exploration lights. Within the dome, the eyes slowly rotated, confirming the flexibility that earlier studies had only suspected. These observations showed that the transparent shield remains perfectly intact while the fish swims. The dome acts as a protective window, shielding the sensitive eyes from drifting stinging cells released by Siphonophores and other gelatinous animals that share the same waters. Through this delicate architecture, the Barreleye carries a small observatory within its own head. From inside that clear chamber, it watches the quiet movement of life passing through the deep ocean, adjusting its gaze with slow precision. The design appears almost improbable at first glance, yet it reflects the patient shaping of evolution in a place where survival often depends on detecting the faintest motion in the water above. In the immense quiet of deep water, a small silhouette sometimes glides slowly through the dark, with jaws that appear far too large for the body behind them. The fish itself measures only a few centimeters in length, yet its teeth rise like curved ivory spikes, extending well beyond the limits of its mouth. This unusual predator is known as the Fangtooth fish, a creature whose appearance seems exaggerated even by the standards of the deep ocean. The name comes from the enormous teeth that dominate its face. Two long fangs project upward from the lower jaw, so tall that the fish cannot fully close its mouth. Instead, the skull contains special sockets just behind the eyes where the tips of the teeth rest when the mouth presses shut. Without these spaces, the fangs would pierce straight through the fish's own head. These teeth are among the largest relative to body size found in any fish. When viewed close to the body that carries them, they appear almost disproportionate. The head itself is compact and heavy, forming a rounded structure built to anchor the muscles that control the jaws. Behind this formidable front, the rest of the fish narrows quickly into a surprisingly modest form, with small fins and a short tail. The fangtooth's eyes are also unusually small compared with those of many other deep-dwelling species. Rather than relying heavily on sight, it depends on sensitive receptors that detect faint vibrations in the surrounding water. These subtle disturbances reveal the movement of nearby animals, even when they remain invisible in the darkness. Life in this remote environment rarely offers frequent meals. Potential prey may drift through the water only occasionally, and when that moment arrives, the opportunity must be seized instantly. The enormous teeth of the fangtooth serve exactly this purpose. They form a cage of curved spikes, capable of trapping almost anything that passes within reach. Once the jaws snap shut, escape becomes nearly impossible. The teeth curve slightly inward, guiding struggling prey deeper into the mouth. Muscles within the throat then pull the captured animal down toward the stomach, where digestion begins slowly in the cold depths. Despite its intimidating appearance, the fangtooth is not a large hunter. Adults typically measure between 15 and 18 centimeters long, smaller than many fish that swim through coastal waters. Their dark bodies blend quietly into the surrounding sea, reducing visibility to both predators and prey. The fish moves through the water with deliberate efficiency, conserving energy while waiting for chance encounters. Its skeleton is dense and strong, compared with many gelatinous animals of the deep sea, providing stability for the powerful bite that defines its survival strategy. Young fangtooth fish look very different from their adult forms. Juveniles possess larger eyes and smaller teeth, reflecting a life spent in slightly shallower waters. As they mature and descend deeper, the head transforms dramatically, the teeth grow longer, and the eyes reduce in size, shaping the adult form suited to darker depths. This transformation illustrates how life in the deep ocean often demands specialized adaptations that appear extreme to observers from the surface world. Each feature of the fangtooth's body reflects the challenge of securing food in a place where opportunities arrive slowly and unpredictably. Within that vast environment, the fangtooth drifts with quiet patience. Its oversized jaws remain slightly open, the long teeth resting in their careful sockets. In the still water around it, the fish waits for the subtle vibration of movement, ready to close its powerful bite the moment a passing animal enters reach. Within the dark layers of the ocean, some predators carry their own lanterns. Most of these lights glow blue or green, colors that travel easily through seawater. Yet, one small hunter produces something far more unusual, a glow so rare in the deep sea that most nearby animals cannot detect it at all. This predator is known as the dragonfish. Slender and dark, it moves through the water with a quiet steadiness, its long body tapering toward a narrow tail. Along its underside run rows of tiny, luminous organs, faint points that can shimmer softly when activated. Near the mouth hangs a delicate barbel, a thin extension that sometimes flickers with light like a distant spark suspended in the water. What makes the dragonfish remarkable is the color of light it can create. Instead of the common blue glow used by many deep-sea animals, the dragonfish generates a deep red illumination. In the sunlit world above, red is among the most familiar colors, but in the deep ocean, it almost never appears. Water absorbs red wavelengths quickly, removing them long before sunlight reaches the darker depths. As a result, most creatures living far below the surface have never evolved the ability to see red light. Their eyes are tuned instead to the shorter blue wavelengths that travel farther through seawater. For them, red simply does not exist as a visible signal. The dragonfish takes advantage of this limitation. Special organs beneath its eyes produce controlled flashes of red bioluminescence, powered by chemical reactions inside the cells. These flashes illuminate the water immediately in front of the fish, revealing nearby animals that would otherwise remain hidden. To most surrounding creatures, this illumination remains invisible. A small crustacean drifting nearby continues its slow movement through the water, unaware that a faint red glow has revealed its presence. From the dragonfish's perspective, however, the prey appears clearly outlined within the narrow beam of light. This ability functions almost like a private searchlight. The dragonfish scans the water quietly, projecting its red glow only when needed. The light travels only a short distance before fading, creating a small illuminated space where the predator can observe its surroundings without alerting other animals. For the dragonfish to use this system effectively, it must also possess the ability to detect the red light it produces. Within its eyes are specialized pigments that allow the fish to perceive these longer wavelengths. This adaptation is rare among deep-sea species, making the dragonfish one of the few animals capable of viewing this hidden spectrum beneath the ocean. The rest of its body reflects a design shaped by patient hunting. Its jaws extend forward with rows of sharp teeth that curve slightly inward, forming a trap once they close around prey. The mouth can open wide relative to the fish's slender frame, allowing it to seize animals nearly its own size. A dark, nearly black skin covers the dragonfish, absorbing stray light that might otherwise reveal its presence. This deep coloration blends with the surrounding water, helping the fish remain unnoticed as it moves through its territory. Dragonfish inhabit depths often between 500 and 2,000 meters, where the water remains cold and still for long stretches of time. In this environment, sudden movement can reveal a predator's approach. The dragonfish therefore advances slowly, conserving energy and relying on the quiet sweep of its hidden illumination. When prey finally enters the narrow field of that red glow, the moment unfolds quickly. The jaws snap forward, the teeth close, and the surrounding water returns to darkness as the light fades once more. Through this unusual use of color, the dragonfish occupies a private visual world within the deep ocean. It carries its own silent lantern, one that reveals the presence of passing animals while remaining unseen by nearly everything around it. A thin ribbon of motion sometimes glides through the deeper ocean, its body long and flexible, tapering gradually toward a tail that ends in a small glowing tip. At first glance, the animal appears almost fragile, like a drifting strand carried by slow currents. Yet the front of its body holds one of the most unusual structures found in any fish. The head expands suddenly into a vast, loose jaw that can unfold into a shape resembling a net suspended in the water. This creature is known as the pelican eel. The name reflects the extraordinary size of its mouth, which resembles the pouch of the seabirds that skim the ocean's surface far above. When the jaws are closed, the head appears narrow and understated. When opened, however, the lower jaw stretches outward into a broad membrane capable of expanding far beyond the width of the eel's slender body. The pelican eel lives in deep water, often several hundred to a few thousand meters below the surface. In this environment, food appears unpredictably, drifting animals passing through the darkness only occasionally. The eel's unusual mouth provides a way to capture whatever opportunity emerges within reach. Instead of chasing prey with speed, the pelican eel relies on sudden expansion. When it encounters a nearby animal, the jaws swing open with remarkable flexibility. The large pouch beneath the mouth spreads outward like a delicate bag, surrounding both water and prey in a single motion. Once the eel closes its jaws again, the trapped water escapes slowly through the gill openings, leaving the captured animal inside. This feeding method allows the eel to swallow prey that may be nearly as large as itself. The elastic tissues of the pouch stretch easily, accommodating animals that would seem impossible for such a narrow fish to consume. After the mouth closes, the eel gradually compresses the pouch, guiding the prey deeper into the digestive tract. Despite the dramatic size of its mouth, the rest of the pelican eel remains remarkably slender. Its body contains relatively little muscle compared with many fast-swimming fish. Instead, it drifts through the water with gentle undulations, conserving energy while searching for passing animals. The eyes of the pelican eel are small, suited to the dim conditions of the deep ocean. Vision alone offers only limited guidance in these depths, so the eel relies heavily on sensitive receptors along its body that detect vibrations in the surrounding water. These subtle signals reveal the movement of nearby organisms even when they remain unseen. At the end of the eel's tail sits a small luminous organ capable of producing a faint glow. This light may serve as a lure, drawing curious animals closer to the eel's waiting jaws. The glow pulses softly in the surrounding water, appearing briefly before fading again into darkness. Because pelican eels are rarely observed alive, much of what scientists know about their behavior comes from occasional sightings made by deep-sea exploration vehicles. These quiet encounters reveal animals moving slowly through the water column, their long bodies curving gently as they drift. When the eel opens its mouth during these observations, the transformation appears almost unreal. The narrow head suddenly unfolds into a broad arc of delicate tissue, creating a temporary structure many times larger than the fish itself. After a moment, the jaws close again, returning the animal to its slender form. Through this remarkable design, the pelican eel embodies a strategy shaped by patience rather than speed. Its expandable mouth functions like a drifting net carried by a living body, ready to gather whatever life passes within reach. In the silent depths where encounters between animals may be rare, such an adaptation allows the pelican eel to transform a brief opportunity into a successful capture, using a structure unlike anything found among the fish of brighter seas. In the stillness of the deeper ocean, a small figure sometimes glides slowly through the water with movements that resemble quiet flight. Two soft fins extend from the sides of its head, rising and falling in steady rhythm. With each gentle motion, the animal drifts forward as if carried by an invisible current, its body floating lightly above the seafloor far below. This unusual swimmer is known as the Dumbo octopus. The name comes from the pair of rounded fins that resemble ears placed high upon the mantle. When these fins lift and sweep downward, the octopus moves through the water with a smooth, almost hovering motion that appears very different from the jet propulsion used by most other octopuses. The Dumbo octopus belongs to a group called serrate octopods, sometimes referred to as umbrella octopuses. Thin filaments known as cirri line the arms, extending between small suckers along their length. A delicate web of skin connects the arms together, forming a wide surface that can open and close like the folds of a soft canopy. When the octopus swims, the fins provide the main propulsion while the arms trail behind in slow, flowing pattern. The webbing between them spreads outward, creating a shape that allows the animal to glide with remarkable grace. Rather than pushing through the water in quick bursts, the Dumbo octopus moves with calm, measured strokes that conserve energy. These animals inhabit depths that few other octopuses reach. Some species have been observed living more than 4,000 meters below the surface, where the seafloor stretches in quiet plains and rocky slopes. At these depths, the water remains cold and stable, and the faint movements of animals become the primary signs of life. The body of a Dumbo octopus is soft and rounded, often only about 20 to 30 centimeters long. Its skin may appear pale, reddish, or slightly translucent depending on the species and surrounding light. Large eyes look outward from the sides of the mantle, offering a wide field of view in the dim environment where it lives. Food in these depths often consists of small animals that live close to the seafloor. The octopus drifts downward gently, extending its arms to gather prey such as tiny crustaceans, worms, and other invertebrates. When the arms close around the captured animal, the webbing forms a loose enclosure that guides the food toward the mouth, hidden at the center. Unlike many octopuses that tear prey apart with powerful bites, the Dumbo octopus typically swallows its food whole. This method suits the small animals it encounters while gliding above the ocean floor. The slow movements of the Dumbo octopus reflect a life adapted to deep, stable waters where sudden bursts of speed are rarely necessary. Its muscles are arranged for steady motion rather than rapid escape. The fins beat gently, lifting and lowering like quiet wings that keep the animal suspended above the seabed. Observations of Dumbo octopuses have mostly come from cameras carried by deep-sea exploration vehicles. These encounters often reveal animals drifting calmly through the water, their fins moving in a steady rhythm, while the arms trail behind in graceful arcs. Because these octopuses live so far beneath the surface, their lives remain largely hidden from direct observation. Yet, the images captured during these explorations show creatures moving with an ease that seems perfectly suited to the silent world they inhabit. Within that vast depth, the Dumbo octopus travels slowly through open water above the seafloor, guided by the gentle rise and fall of its fins. The motion carries it forward in quiet arcs, its soft body suspended in the dark ocean where few other octopuses are able to live. In a quiet stretch of deep water where oxygen is scarce and movement remains slow, a small cephalopod drifts with an appearance that once inspired a dramatic name. Its body carries a deep crimson tone, and a broad web of skin spreads between its arms like a folded cloak. When those arms draw inward, the webbing closes around the animal, forming a shape that resembles a dark cape gathered around its body. For this reason, the creature became known as the vampire squid. Despite the dramatic title, this animal bears little resemblance to the predatory hunters often imagined by its name. The vampire squid moves gently through the water column, rarely displaying sudden motion or aggressive pursuit. Instead, it drifts in calm suspension, its soft fins beating in steady rhythm to maintain position within the surrounding water. The species lives in a region of the ocean where oxygen concentrations fall far below those tolerated by most animals. This environment, sometimes called an oxygen minimum zone, exists in certain mid-depth layers where circulation of fresh water remains limited. Many creatures avoid these regions entirely, leaving them sparsely inhabited compared with the richer waters above and below. The vampire squid has adapted to survive comfortably within this thinly oxygenated world. Its metabolism operates slowly, allowing it to function with minimal energy. Specialized blood pigments bind oxygen efficiently, helping the animal extract what little is available from the surrounding water. The body itself remains relatively small, typically measuring no more than 30 centimeters from the tip of the mantle to the ends of its extended arms. The mantle forms a smooth oval shape from which two delicate fins project near the upper sides. These fins move with gentle strokes that keep the squid drifting steadily through the water. Between the 8 arms stretches a broad web of thin tissue. When the arms spread outward, the web opens like a wide umbrella. When they curl inward, the web gathers tightly around the body, enclosing the animal within a protective fold. Rows of soft spines line the arms beneath this webbing. These structures, called cirri, help guide food toward the mouth. Unlike many other cephalopods that hunt active prey, the vampire squid feeds primarily on drifting organic material. Tiny fragments of dead plankton, small particles of detritus, and microscopic organisms settle slowly through the ocean, forming a continuous rain of nutrients from the distant surface waters. The squid extends 2 slender filaments that can reach outward into the surrounding water. These delicate threads capture drifting particles and guide them toward the arms. Once gathered, the webbed arms close gently, directing the collected material toward the mouth where it is consumed. The animal's coloration contributes to the striking appearance that inspired its name. Deep red pigment covers much of the body, a color that appears almost black in the dim environment where the squid lives. In these depths, red wavelengths disappear quickly, leaving the animal effectively invisible against the surrounding water. When disturbed, the vampire squid can perform a distinctive defensive display. The arms bend backward over the body, turning the webbing outward to reveal the rows of spines beneath. This posture transforms the animal's silhouette, presenting a form that appears larger and more complex than its usual shape. Even this display unfolds slowly, reflecting the quiet pace of life in oxygen-poor waters. The squid rarely relies on rapid escape. Instead, it conserves energy and remains suspended within its narrow ecological niche. Through these adaptations, the vampire squid occupies a part of the ocean avoided by many other animals. In the calm darkness of these oxygen-poor layers, it drifts patiently, gathering the slow snowfall of organic matter that sustains life far from the sunlit surface. Across certain stretches of the deep sea floor, a heavy armored shape moves slowly over the sediment, its body segmented like a series of overlapping plates. The creature appears ancient in design, with jointed legs that carry it patiently across the dark plain. At first glance, it resembles a giant version of the small pill bugs that sometimes curl beneath stones on land. This resemblance is no coincidence, for the animal belongs to the same distant family of crustaceans. The giant isopod represents one of the most striking examples of deep ocean gigantism, a phenomenon in which certain animals grow far larger than their relatives in shallower environments. While the pill bugs of gardens and forests measure only a few centimeters long, the giant isopod can reach lengths exceeding 40 centimeters, giving it the presence of a small armored vehicle slowly crossing the seabed. Its body consists of a series of rigid segments that form a protective shell. Each segment overlaps the next, creating a flexible armor that shields the softer tissues beneath. 7 pairs of sturdy walking legs extend from the underside, allowing the animal to move deliberately across the ocean floor. At the front, 2 sensitive antennae sweep slowly through the water and across the sediment, sampling faint chemical traces left by nearby organisms. Large compound eyes sit on either side of the head, capable of detecting subtle changes in light. Though the deep seafloor receives little natural illumination, these eyes remain useful when brief glimmers appear from passing bioluminescent creatures or exploration lights carried by visiting submersibles. The giant isopod belongs to a group of animals known as scavengers. Rather than actively pursuing prey, it spends much of its life searching the seafloor for organic remains that have settled from higher waters. Dead fish, fragments of squid, and other drifting carcasses eventually sink to the bottom, providing rare but valuable meals. When such a meal appears, giant isopods gather slowly around it. Their strong mandibles tear apart the soft tissues, allowing them to consume large quantities in a short time. The animal's body is capable of expanding as it feeds, the flexible plates separating slightly to accommodate the sudden intake of food. These large meals are necessary because opportunities may occur only rarely in the deep ocean. Between such events, the giant isopod must endure long stretches with little or no nourishment. To survive these intervals, it relies on an extremely slow metabolism that conserves energy. Laboratory observations and aquarium studies have shown that giant isopods can survive for months without feeding. In some recorded cases, individuals remained alive for more than a year with minimal food intake. During these periods, the animals remain largely inactive, conserving energy while their bodies slowly draw upon stored reserves. The cold temperature of the deep ocean contributes to this slow pace of life. Biological processes proceed gradually, reducing the amount of energy required for survival. Movements remain deliberate, and unhurried. Each step across the seabed measured and economical. When threatened, the giant isopod can curl its body into a tight ball, much like its smaller relatives on land. The segmented plates lock together, forming a protective sphere that shields the vulnerable underside from potential predators. Despite its formidable appearance, the giant isopod plays an important role in the ecology of the deep ocean floor. By consuming the remains of animals that sink from above, it helps recycle organic material that would otherwise accumulate on the seabed. Across the wide plains of the deep ocean, these armored scavengers continue their patient search, antennae sweeping gently through the water while their segmented bodies move steadily over the sediment. In a place where food arrives only occasionally, endurance and efficiency become the quiet foundations of survival. A narrow shape glides quietly through the deep water, its body dark and elongated, almost invisible against the surrounding sea. At the front of the head hangs a lower jaw so thin and delicate that it appears barely attached at all. The structure extends forward like a fragile hinge, giving the fish an appearance both unusual and strangely precise. This creature is known as the Stoplight loosejaw. The name reflects two of its most remarkable features. The first is the extraordinary design of the lower jaw itself. Unlike the sturdy jaws found in many fish, the loosejaw's lower mandible is long, slender, and lightly built. It hangs beneath the head with only minimal bone supporting its length, giving the impression that it could detach with the slightest movement. Yet this apparent fragility hides a specialized function. The loosejaw's jaw is engineered for speed rather than strength. Its thin structure reduces resistance in the surrounding water, allowing it to swing upward with remarkable quickness when prey appears nearby. When the fish detects a target, the lower jaw snaps upward in a sudden motion that closes the mouth around the prey. The movement happens so quickly that nearby animals have little time to react. Once the prey is captured, the upper jaw and throat muscles secure the meal before it can escape. The head of the Stoplight loosejaw contains additional adaptations that support this rapid strike. Muscles and ligaments inside the skull provide the mechanical leverage needed to move the delicate jaw with surprising force. Despite its narrow construction, the jaw can close firmly enough to trap small fish and crustaceans that drift through the surrounding water. The body of the loosejaw remains slender and dark, allowing it to move quietly through its environment. Its fins are small and positioned to maintain steady control while hovering in the water column. This restrained design helps the fish conserve energy in an environment where food encounters remain unpredictable. One of the most intriguing features of the Stoplight loosejaw lies beneath its eyes. Here, the fish carries small organs capable of producing bioluminescent light. Among these luminous structures is one that emits a faint red glow, similar to the rare coloration produced by certain other deep-sea predators. The loosejaw uses this light in a controlled way, directing it forward like a narrow beam that illuminates a small space in front of its mouth. Most animals inhabiting these depths cannot perceive red wavelengths, leaving them unaware of the subtle glow that reveals their presence. Through this hidden illumination, the loosejaw gains a quiet advantage. As small creatures drift within the reach of its narrow light, their forms become visible to the fish, while they remain unaware of the approaching predator. When the moment arrives, the delicate jaw swings upward with speed that belies its fragile appearance. The name Stoplight refers to another luminous organ positioned near the eye that glows with a different color. These paired lights give the fish a faintly symmetrical pattern, though their exact role remains an area of continuing study. Despite its unusual design, the The stoplight loosejaw remains a relatively small fish, often measuring less than 30 centimeters in length. It inhabits midwater depths where the ocean stretches in wide open layers far above the sea floor. Within that quiet environment, the fish drifts with patient precision. Its delicate jaw hangs beneath the head, ready to move at a moment's notice, while the subtle glow of hidden light reveals passing life that might otherwise remain unseen in the vast darkness surrounding it. Suspended in the dim layers of the deep ocean, a small fish waits in stillness, carrying above its head a faint point of living light. The glow sways gently with the motion of the water, appearing almost like a drifting spark in the darkness. Nearby animals notice the glow first, not the fish that holds it. This quiet illusion belongs to one of the most recognizable hunters of the deep sea, the anglerfish. The light originates from a slender structure extending forward from the fish's head. This extension, known as the elysium, functions like a flexible rod that supports a luminous organ at its tip. The glowing bulb, called the esca, produces soft bioluminescent light through a partnership between the fish and tiny bacteria living inside the organ. These bacteria generate light through chemical reactions that occur naturally within their cells. The anglerfish provides a protected environment where the microbes can survive, and in return the bacteria create the steady glow that gives the fish its hunting advantage. In the dark waters where the anglerfish lives, this light becomes a powerful signal. Small animals drifting through the ocean notice the faint shimmer and move closer, mistaking it for food or for another creature. As the prey approaches the glowing lure, it enters the quiet reach of the anglerfish's mouth. The fish itself remains almost motionless while the lure does its work. Its body is usually dark and rounded, helping it blend into the surrounding water. Wide jaws stretch across the front of the head, filled with long, curved teeth that angle inward like the bars of a cage. When the moment arrives, the anglerfish opens its mouth with sudden speed. The jaws expand forward, creating a swift current of water that pulls the prey inside. Once the teeth close, escape becomes extremely difficult. The flexible stomach allows the fish to swallow animals nearly as large as itself, an important adaptation in a place where meals may be separated by long stretches of time. Although the glowing lure and wide jaws define the anglerfish's hunting method, another aspect of its biology has fascinated scientists for many years. The reproductive strategy of these fish unfolds in a way rarely seen among vertebrates. In many species of anglerfish, the female grows far larger than the male. The female carries the famous lure and the powerful jaws used for feeding. The male, by contrast, remains small and far less developed. His primary task is to locate a female in the vast expanse of the deep ocean. Finding a partner in such an enormous environment presents a challenge. The male anglerfish relies heavily on an acute sense of smell that allows him to detect chemical signals released by females. When he finally encounters one, the male attaches himself to her body with his mouth. Over time, the connection between the two fish becomes permanent. The tissues of the male and female fuse together, and the male's circulatory system merges with that of the female. From that point forward, he receives nutrients directly from her bloodstream. As the fusion continues, the male's body gradually simplifies. Organs that are no longer necessary begin to shrink, leaving behind only the tissues required for reproduction. The male remains attached for the rest of his life, becoming a small appendage carried by the much larger female. This unusual partnership ensures that when the female is ready to produce eggs, a mate is always present. In the immense distances of the deep ocean, such certainty becomes valuable for the continuation of the species. Through its glowing lure and its remarkable life cycle, The anglerfish embodies a form of survival shaped by darkness, distance, and patience. In the quiet depths where it drifts, the faint point of light above its head continues to glow, drawing passing creatures toward a hunter waiting in stillness. Now and then, a quiet flicker appears in the dark water, a brief pulse of light that glows and fades before the surrounding sea returns to stillness. Moments later, another spark appears somewhere nearby, followed by a slow ripple of illumination moving through the water like distant stars, shifting across a night sky. In the deep ocean, these lights are not reflections or sunlight carried from above. They are created by the animals themselves. This natural production of light is known as bioluminescence. Within specialized cells, chemical reactions release energy in the form of visible glow. A molecule called luciferin reacts with oxygen in the presence of an enzyme known as luciferase. The process releases light with very little heat, allowing living tissues to shine without damage. In the dark waters of the deep ocean, bioluminescence has become one of the most widespread adaptations among marine organisms. Many fish, jellyfish, shrimp, and small drifting animals possess the ability to create light in controlled flashes or steady glows. The colors often appear blue or green, wavelengths that travel efficiently through seawater and remain visible across greater distances. These luminous displays serve many purposes. For some species, light functions as a form of communication. Brief pulses can signal the presence of a potential mate or help individuals recognize members of their own kind. In certain animals, the pattern of flashes follows a distinct rhythm, allowing signals to stand out clearly against the dark background of the ocean. Other species use bioluminescence for concealment rather than visibility. Some fish carry rows of tiny light-producing organs along the underside of their bodies. By adjusting the brightness of these lights, they match the faint illumination drifting down from above. From below, the animal's silhouette disappears, blending with the dim glow overhead in a form of camouflage known as counter-illumination. In this way, the fish avoids casting a dark outline that might reveal its presence to predators swimming beneath it. The light effectively erases the shadow the body would normally create. Bioluminescence also plays a role in hunting. Some predators generate small luminous signals that resemble drifting plankton or other tiny organisms. Curious animals approach the glow, only to discover too late that the light originated from a waiting hunter. In other cases, the light appears suddenly as a defensive response. Certain shrimp release clouds of glowing fluid into the water, creating a bright distraction that confuses predators while the animal escapes into the surrounding darkness. Jellyfish sometimes produce expanding rings of light that spread outward, like gentle ripples before fading. The ability to generate light requires precise control. Specialized organs, called photophores, house the chemical components needed for illumination. Muscles or pigments surrounding these organs can regulate when the light becomes visible, allowing animals to flash briefly or remain dark depending on the situation. Some species rely on symbiotic bacteria that live inside these photophores. The bacteria produce a continuous glow, while the host animal controls shutters or membranes that expose or hide the light. This partnership allows the animal to maintain a reliable source of illumination without producing the chemicals itself. Because the deep ocean remains permanently dark, even a small spark of light becomes significant. A faint glow can reveal the presence of prey, signal a partner, or conceal a body against the dim water above. Across the vast depths where sunlight never arrives, countless organisms carry their own quiet lanterns. Some shine for moments, others glow steadily, and still others release sudden flashes that vanish as quickly as they appear. Together, these living lights form a hidden language written in brief pulses and soft glimmers, scattered through the darkness of the deep ocean where life continues to communicate, hunt, and hide within a world illuminated by its own gentle glow. In the vast midwater layers of the ocean, many animals live far from the seafloor and far below the brighter surface above. This region offers little shelter. There are no rocks, corals, or plants where a creature can hide. Instead, animals drift through open water where visibility extends in every direction. In such an exposed environment, survival often depends on the ability to disappear. Some species accomplish this by becoming nearly invisible. Their bodies are built from tissues so clear that light passes through them with little distortion. Organs shrink or shift into positions that reduce shadows, and pigments that would normally give color to muscles or skin remain absent. The result is a form that blends almost perfectly with the surrounding water. Transparent animals are surprisingly common in the ocean's mid-depths. Certain jellyfish drift as faint outlines, their delicate bells almost indistinguishable from the water around them. Small crustaceans and larval fish sometimes possess bodies so clear that their internal structures appear suspended like tiny moving shapes within a floating lens. Maintaining such clarity requires careful balance. Cells must contain very little pigment, and structures that might scatter light are minimized. Even blood pigments may be reduced or replaced with compounds that carry oxygen without producing strong color. The entire body becomes a living window through which the surrounding sea can pass visually, uninterrupted. Yet, transparency alone cannot hide every animal. Larger creatures often contain organs that remain too dense or complex to become fully clear. For them, another strategy has evolved, one that uses light itself as a tool for concealment. This method is known as counter-illumination. Many midwater fish and squid carry rows of tiny light-producing organs along the underside of their bodies. These organs emit a soft glow that can be adjusted in brightness to match the faint light filtering down from above. When a predator swims beneath such an animal and looks upward, it would normally see a dark silhouette blocking the dim glow of the upper ocean. That shadow reveals the animal's presence. Counter-illumination removes this outline by filling the shadow with matching light. The glowing organs create a pattern that blends seamlessly with the background brightness. Through this careful balance, the animal effectively erases its own silhouette. From below, the body becomes difficult to distinguish from the surrounding water. The technique allows creatures to swim through open space without casting the dark shapes that would normally reveal them. Some species refine this strategy further by adjusting the color and intensity of their light according to changing conditions. As the faint glow from above shifts with depth or time of day, the animal's photophores respond by altering their brightness. This constant adjustment maintains the illusion of invisibility. Transparency and counter-illumination represent two different approaches to the same challenge. One removes the visual presence of the body itself. The other replaces the shadow that would otherwise betray it. Together, these adaptations allow animals to navigate the open water where hiding places are almost non-existent. Instead of blending with rocks or plants, they blend with the ocean itself. Within this wide and exposed region, countless creatures drift quietly through the water while remaining almost impossible to see. Some appear only as faint distortions in the light. Others leave no visible trace at all. In a world where survival often depends on remaining unnoticed, invisibility becomes one of the most elegant solutions shaped by life in the open sea. Far below the reach of coastal reefs, where sunlight no longer warms the water, Another kind of coral landscape rises quietly from the seafloor. These formations do not resemble the bright tropical reefs familiar in shallow seas. Instead, they form pale, branching structures that extend slowly into the dark water, creating habitats that resemble silent underwater forests. Deep-sea corals grow in places where currents carry a steady supply of microscopic food. Unlike the corals of shallow reefs, they cannot rely on symbiotic algae for energy, since no sunlight reaches these depths. Every particle of nourishment must arrive from the surrounding water, drifting past the delicate branches that extend upward from the seabed. Each coral colony consists of thousands of tiny animals called polyps. These polyps build skeletons of calcium carbonate, gradually constructing rigid frameworks that grow outward over many years. From a distance, the colonies appear like intricate trees or tangled thickets, their branches spreading slowly into the dark. Growth in these environments proceeds at an extremely slow pace. Some deep-sea coral species extend only a few millimeters each year. A colony several meters across may therefore represent centuries of steady development. In certain cases, researchers have discovered coral structures whose oldest portions formed more than 1,000 years ago. Because these formations persist for such long periods, they gradually create complex habitats that support a wide variety of life. The branching skeletons provide surfaces where other organisms can settle, while the spaces between the branches offer shelter for small animals moving through the surrounding water. Crustaceans crawl across the coral limbs, their bodies navigating carefully through the narrow openings. Delicate starfish wrap their arms around the branches, clinging to the structure while feeding on drifting particles. Small fish hover within the protective maze formed by the coral framework, retreating deeper into the thicket when larger predators pass nearby. Some deep-sea corals grow tall and fan-shaped, orienting their broad surfaces toward the direction of the current. In this position, the colony can capture the greatest number of suspended food particles carried by the flowing water. The polyps extend tiny tentacles that trap passing plankton and organic debris, drawing these nutrients inward to sustain the colony. Other species form dense clusters resembling shrubs or bushes rising from rocky slopes. In certain locations, these coral communities spread across wide areas of the seafloor, creating habitats that resemble quiet underwater woodlands. Exploration vehicles have revealed entire fields of coral branches extending across the landscape, their pale structures standing motionless in the dark. The stability of these environments allows many animals to establish long-term relationships with the coral colonies. Some species spend nearly their entire lives within the shelter of a single structure. Others arrive temporarily, feeding among the branches, before continuing their slow journeys through the surrounding depths. Despite their resilience over centuries, deep-sea coral ecosystems remain fragile. Their skeletons, though rigid, can break when disturbed by strong impacts. Because growth occurs so slowly, damaged colonies may require many generations to recover. For this reason, the deep ocean forests formed by coral represent some of the most ancient living structures beneath the sea. Each branch records years of patient construction by the tiny polyps that built it, layer by layer. Within the quiet darkness where these colonies stand, life gathers around their intricate forms. The corals themselves remain rooted to the seafloor, but their presence shapes an entire community of creatures that drift, crawl, and hover among the delicate branches of these hidden forests. Along certain fractures of the deep ocean floor, the seafloor opens slightly and releases streams of mineral-rich water that rise slowly into the surrounding sea. These places lie far from sunlight, often along vast underwater mountain chains where the crust of the earth gradually shifts and spreads. From these openings emerges a form of activity that transforms the otherwise quiet landscape. The structures are known as hydrothermal vents. At first, they appear as dark chimneys rising from the seabed, sometimes reaching several meters in height. Around their openings, shimmering currents of heated water flow upward in steady plumes. The surrounding water remains cold, yet within these rising columns, temperatures can climb far beyond what would normally be expected in the deep ocean. Seawater seeps down through cracks in the oceanic crust and travels deep into the rock layers beneath the seafloor. As it descends, the water encounters magma, heated by the interior of the planet. The intense heat warms the trapped seawater until it becomes enriched with dissolved minerals drawn from the surrounding rocks. Under the enormous pressure of the deep ocean, water can reach temperatures well above the boiling point that would occur at the surface. Instead of turning to steam, it remains liquid as it absorbs heat and minerals. Eventually, the heated fluid rises again through the crust, escaping back into the ocean through narrow openings. When this superheated water emerges from the vent, it mixes with the cold seawater around it. The sudden change in temperature causes many dissolved minerals to solidify, forming dark clouds that resemble smoke drifting upward through the water. These mineral particles gradually settle and accumulate around the vent openings, building the tall chimney structures that characterize these environments. Despite the extreme conditions surrounding hydrothermal vents, they support dense communities of living organisms. The source of energy sustaining this life does not come from sunlight. Instead, it originates from the chemicals carried upward in the vent fluids. Certain bacteria living near the vents are capable of using these chemicals as fuel. Through a process known as chemosynthesis, they convert compounds such as hydrogen sulfide into organic matter. This chemical energy becomes the foundation of a food web that exists entirely independent of sunlight. Clusters of animals gather around these bacterial communities. Some species graze directly on the microbial films that coat the surfaces of rocks and vent chimneys. Others form more intricate relationships with the bacteria, hosting them inside their own bodies. Among the most recognizable inhabitants of these environments are large clams and mussels that grow in dense groups near the vent openings. Their shells remain slightly open as they filter water, allowing symbiotic bacteria within their tissues to convert chemical compounds into nourishment. Bright red plumes of tube-dwelling worms also appear near many vents, their long bodies anchored within protective tubes attached to the seafloor. Although these worms lack mouths or digestive systems, they survive through bacteria that live within specialized organs inside their bodies. The entire community forms a striking contrast with the surrounding deep ocean floor. Just beyond the vent fields, the seafloor often appears sparsely populated, yet near the rising plumes of mineral-rich water, life gathers in remarkable density. Hydrothermal vents, therefore, reveal a different path through which living systems can obtain energy. Instead of relying on sunlight from the surface world, these ecosystems draw power from the geological activity of the planet itself. Within the quiet depths where these vents occur, heated water continues to rise from the seafloor, carrying the chemical ingredients that sustain an entire community of organisms adapted to one of the most unusual environments on Earth. Near certain openings in the deep sea floor, tall pale shapes rise in clusters from the rocky ground, their smooth tubes standing upright like slender columns. From the top of each tube emerges a soft plume of bright red filaments that sway gently in the surrounding water. These remarkable animals are known as giant tube worms, and their presence marks one of the most unusual communities in the ocean. Each worm lives inside a protective tube made from secreted minerals that gradually harden around its body. The tube anchors securely to the seafloor, allowing the worm to extend its soft tissues upward into the water while remaining protected within its rigid shelter. Some of these tubes grow to impressive lengths. Mature individuals can exceed 2 meters, making them among the largest worms known in the marine world. At the upper end of the worm's body spreads the crimson plume that gives the animal its distinctive appearance. This structure functions much like a gill, allowing the worm to absorb dissolved gases from the surrounding water. Oxygen flows through the plume and into specialized tissues that transport it throughout the animal's body. The color of the plume comes from a pigment similar to hemoglobin, the oxygen-carrying molecule found in many animals. In the giant tube worm, this pigment circulates within the blood and binds both oxygen and certain chemicals present in the vent water. Unlike most animals, the giant tube worm possesses no mouth, no stomach, and no digestive tract of any kind. The entire digestive system has disappeared during its evolutionary history. At first, this absence puzzled scientists who discovered the worms near hydrothermal vent fields. Without a way to consume food, it seemed impossible for such large animals to survive. The explanation lies within a specialized internal organ called the trophosome. Inside this structure live billions of microscopic bacteria that maintain a close partnership with the worm. These bacteria perform a process similar to the chemical transformations that occur near the vents. Using compounds such as hydrogen sulfide carried upward in the surrounding water, the bacteria produce organic molecules that serve as nourishment. In effect, the microbes act as tiny chemical factories operating inside the worm's body. The worm supplies the bacteria with oxygen and chemicals gathered by the plume, while the bacteria provide the nutrients needed for growth. Blood flowing through the worm carries both oxygen and hydrogen sulfide to the trophosome, delivering the ingredients required for this internal chemistry. The bacteria then convert these materials into energy-rich compounds that sustain the host animal. Through this remarkable partnership, the giant tube worm survives without ever eating in the traditional sense. Its nourishment arises entirely from the chemical reactions carried out by its internal symbionts. Clusters of these worms often grow densely around hydrothermal vents, their white tubes forming thick stands across the seafloor. The red plumes extend upward, like fields of delicate flowers swaying gently in the rising currents of mineral-rich water. Other animals gather among these colonies. Small crabs move between the tubes, while shrimp drift through the water above. The entire community depends on the chemical energy released by the vents and transformed by bacteria into usable food. The giant tube worm stands as one of the most striking examples of how life can adapt to environments far removed from sunlight. Its body functions as a living partnership between animal and microbe, each providing what the other requires to survive. In the silent depths, where hydrothermal vents release their mineral-rich waters, these towering worms continue to grow slowly within their mineral tubes, sustained by invisible processes unfolding quietly inside their own bodies. Amid the mineral-rich landscapes surrounding hydrothermal vents, a small crustacean sometimes moves slowly across the rocky surfaces, its pale body illuminated only by the faint glow of exploration lights or the occasional shimmer of vent fluids. At first glance, it resembles a typical deep-sea crab, yet a closer look reveals something unusual. Its claws appear covered in thick, silky filaments that give the animal an almost furry appearance. This remarkable creature is known as the Yeti crab. The name emerged soon after its discovery, inspired by the dense covering of hair-like structures that line its front limbs. These filaments are not fur in the mammalian sense. Instead, they are fine bristles known as setae, flexible extensions of the crab's exoskeleton that provide a surface for an unusual partnership. The Yeti crab lives in close association with hydrothermal vent systems, where superheated water escapes from the seafloor, carrying dissolved minerals and chemical compounds. In these environments, sunlight plays no role in sustaining life. Instead, the foundation of the ecosystem depends on microorganisms capable of converting chemical energy into organic matter. Along the setae that cover the crab's claws, colonies of bacteria grow in dense clusters. These microbes form pale coatings that spread along the delicate filaments like tiny gardens suspended in the water. The bacteria thrive on chemicals such as hydrogen sulfide that are abundant in vent fluids. The crab actively tends these bacterial communities. By waving its claws slowly through the mineral-rich water near the vents, it exposes the bacteria to a steady flow of the chemicals they require. This motion allows the microbial colonies to grow continuously along the bristles. From time to time, the crab brings its claws toward its mouth and consumes portions of the bacteria growing there. In this way, the animal harvests the microorganisms that it cultivates on its own body. The relationship forms a simple yet effective system of farming in an environment where traditional food sources remain limited. The body of the Yeti crab remains relatively small, often measuring only a few centimeters across. Its coloration is typically pale or creamy white, a reflection of the darkness in which it lives. Without sunlight, there is little advantage in producing strong pigments, and many vent-dwelling animals display similarly light-colored bodies. The crab's eyes are reduced in size, sometimes appearing as small, dark spots that provide limited visual capability. Instead, the animal relies heavily on chemical and tactile cues to navigate its surroundings. Sensitive antennae extend forward, sampling the water for changes in temperature or chemical composition that signal the presence of vent fluids. Movement near hydrothermal vents requires careful positioning. The water emerging from these openings can reach extremely high temperatures before mixing with the surrounding cold ocean water. By remaining within the narrow zones where chemical-rich fluids blend with cooler currents, the Yeti crab finds conditions suitable for both itself and the bacteria it cultivates. Clusters of these crabs often gather near active vent openings, their hairy claws moving slowly as they maintain the bacterial gardens that sustain them. Around them, other vent animals continue their own quiet routines, forming communities shaped by chemical energy rising from beneath the seafloor. The discovery of the Yeti crab in the early 21st century revealed yet another example of how life adapts to extreme environments. Its partnership with bacteria reflects a strategy that transforms the crab's own body into a place where food can grow. Within the dim landscapes surrounding hydrothermal vents, the Yeti crab moves patiently across the mineral-coated rocks, its bristled claws gently sweeping through the water as invisible colonies of bacteria flourish along the delicate filaments. Across certain stretches of the deep ocean floor, the sediment appears almost alive with slow motion. Pale, elongated animals rest upon the seabed in numbers that can extend across large areas. From a distance, the landscape resembles a quiet field scattered with soft shapes lying gently on the surface of the mud. These animals are sea cucumbers, distant relatives of starfish and sea urchins, and in some regions they gather in remarkable abundance. Sea cucumbers belong to a group of animals known as echinoderms, yet their bodies have taken a form very different from the star-shaped relatives found in shallower waters. Instead of rigid arms or spiny surfaces, they possess long, flexible bodies that move slowly across the sediment. Their skin appears soft and often slightly translucent, blending subtly with the colors of the seafloor. In certain deep ocean environments, these creatures form dense communities, sometimes referred to as cucumber fields. Exploration vehicles descending into these regions occasionally reveal hundreds or even thousands of individuals scattered across the seabed, each one slowly processing the sediment beneath it. The activity of these animals centers on feeding. Unlike predators that pursue moving prey, sea cucumbers obtain nourishment from the thin layer of organic material that settles onto the ocean floor. This material arrives gradually from the distant waters above as tiny particles drift downward through the water column. Over time, these particles accumulate within the upper layers of seafloor sediment. For sea cucumbers, this layer represents a valuable source of nutrients. Using small feeding tentacles arranged around their mouths, the animals gather sediment and guide it inward where it can be processed. Inside the body, the sediment passes through a long digestive tract that extracts the organic fragments contained within it. These fragments may include microscopic organisms, decaying plankton, and other remnants of life from higher levels of the ocean. Once the useful material has been absorbed, the remaining sediment exits the animal and returns to the seabed. Through this steady feeding process, sea cucumbers perform an important role within deep ocean ecosystems. As they move slowly across the seafloor, they continually turn and rework the sediment beneath them. This activity helps redistribute nutrients and prevents organic material from accumulating in thick layers. The movement of a single sea cucumber may appear subtle, but across a large field, the collective effect becomes significant. The sediment is gently stirred and renewed as countless individuals feed and crawl across the ocean floor. Some species move with small tube feet that extend from the underside of the body, allowing them to grip the sediment and inch forward gradually. Others rely on slow, muscular contractions that glide the body along the surface of the seabed. In environments where cucumber fields develop, the animals often align with subtle currents flowing near the seafloor. These currents help deliver fresh layers of organic particles that settle into the sediment, providing a steady supply of food for the grazing community. Despite their quiet appearance, sea cucumbers form one of the most important groups of recyclers in deep ocean habitats. By consuming and processing sediment, they return nutrients back into the surrounding environment where other organisms can make use of them. Across these wide stretches of seabed, the animals continue their slow work without urgency. One by one, they gather the thin deposits of organic matter that settle from distant waters, leaving behind gently reshaped trails in the sediment as the field gradually renews itself beneath the quiet weight of the deep ocean. Long before any creature reaches the seafloor, a slow and nearly invisible journey is already underway through the water above. Tiny particles begin drifting downward from distant layers of the ocean, descending gradually through the immense vertical space that separates the surface from the deep. This quiet fall continues day and night, forming a steady rain that nourishes much of the life living far below. Scientists often refer to this drifting material as marine snow. The name reflects the way these particles appear when illuminated by the lights of deep-sea exploration vehicles. Countless small fragments float through the water, each one gliding slowly downward like delicate flakes suspended in an endless descent. Marine snow is not made of frozen crystals. Instead, it consists of organic debris originating from life closer to the ocean surface. Microscopic plankton, fragments of algae, and the remains of countless tiny organisms eventually break apart and begin their gradual fall. Even the waste produced by animals in upper waters contributes to this continuous stream of material. As these particles sink, they gather together into larger clusters, Sticky substances produced by plankton cause fragments to adhere to one another, forming loose aggregates that drift more easily toward deeper layers. Over time, these clusters grow into delicate flakes, large enough to be visible under artificial light. The descent of marine snow is remarkably slow. Some particles may take weeks to travel from the upper ocean to the seafloor. During this journey, the material passes through many different layers of the ocean, where drifting animals encounter it along the way. For countless creatures living in the midwater depths, marine snow represents a vital source of nourishment. Small crustaceans, gelatinous animals, and other drifting species capture these particles as they pass, filtering them from the surrounding water. Each fragment contains traces of organic carbon that once formed part of living organisms above. Even after much of the original energy has been consumed during the descent, enough remains to sustain many animals inhabiting the deeper ocean. The constant fall of marine snow therefore links distant ecosystems together, carrying energy from sunlit waters to the darkest depths. When the remaining particles finally reach the seafloor, they settle gently across the sediment. Here they form a thin layer of organic material that supports communities of animals living on or within the seabed. Creatures such as sea cucumbers, worms, and numerous microscopic organisms feed on these deposits, extracting what nutrients remain. This steady rain of organic matter shapes entire ecosystems in places where no sunlight reaches. Without marine snow, the deep ocean would contain far fewer sources of nourishment. Many animals depend directly or indirectly on the particles that drift downward from distant waters. The process also plays an important role in the global movement of carbon through Earth's oceans. As marine snow sinks and becomes buried within seafloor sediments, it carries carbon away from the atmosphere and stores it within the deep ocean for long periods of time. Seen from the perspective of the deep sea, this slow snowfall never truly stops. New particles begin their descent every moment, forming a quiet cascade that continues across the vast expanse of the ocean. Within this perpetual fall, countless organisms gather what nourishment they can, each one part of a system that connects the distant surface to the hidden world far below. Time moves differently in the deep ocean. In the quiet water far below the reach of storms and sunlight, many forms of life follow rhythms measured not in days or seasons, but in decades. Growth unfolds gradually, movements remain unhurried, and entire lifetimes stretch far longer than those of similar animals in brighter seas. Cold temperatures play an important role in shaping this slower pace. In the deep ocean, the water often remains only a few degrees above freezing, and these stable conditions persist year after year with little variation. Chemical reactions inside living cells proceed more slowly in such cold environments, reducing the speed of metabolism throughout the body. For many deep-sea organisms, this slow metabolism becomes the foundation of extraordinary longevity. Energy is used sparingly, growth progresses gradually, and biological wear accumulates at a much slower rate. As a result, some animals inhabiting these depths can live for more than a century. Certain deep-sea fish provide striking examples of this extended lifespan. Species such as the orange ruffy grow slowly and reach maturity only after many years. Their bodies develop gradually as they navigate the dark midwater layers or hover near the seafloor. Individual fish may survive for well over 100 years, making them among the longest-lived bony fish known. Deep-sea corals also reveal remarkable longevity. Some colonies extend only a few millimeters each year as they slowly build their branching skeletons. Over long periods, this careful growth produces structures that may endure for hundreds or even thousands of years. The oldest sections of these colonies preserve chemical records of ocean conditions that existed long before modern scientific measurements began. Other animals adopt similarly patient strategies for survival. Deep sea sharks, for example, often grow at extremely slow rates and may take many decades to reach maturity. Their bodies reflect an economy of motion suited to the calm waters where rapid swimming is rarely required. In these environments, food arrives unpredictably, drifting downward from distant ecosystems closer to the surface. Long lifespans allow animals to endure extended intervals between successful meals or reproductive events. Rather than relying on frequent opportunities, they persist through steady patience. This extended timeline influences how entire communities function. Populations may renew themselves slowly, with individuals remaining part of the ecosystem for generations. A coral colony established centuries ago may still shelter small animals today, while fish born decades earlier continue to move quietly through the same waters. The absence of sunlight also contributes to the steady pace of life. Without daily cycles of light and darkness, many deep-sea organisms experience little variation in their surroundings. Temperature remains stable, currents shift gradually, and the environment changes slowly across long stretches of time. As a result, life histories often extend far beyond the expectations formed in more dynamic habitats. Growth, reproduction, and aging all proceed at reduced speed, producing animals whose lifetimes unfold over extraordinary spans. Exploration of the deep ocean continues to reveal additional examples of such longevity. Each discovery adds to the understanding that survival in these depths often favors endurance over rapid development. Within this vast and quiet realm, life advances patiently through years that accumulate almost unnoticed. Fish glide through the water for decades, coral branches lengthen by tiny increments, and entire ecosystems evolve at a pace measured across centuries. In the darkness of the deep ocean, time itself seems to stretch, allowing certain creatures to live lives that extend far beyond the rhythms familiar in the world above. Far below the upper layers of the ocean, the weight of water increases steadily with depth, pressing inward from every direction. At these extreme levels, the surrounding force becomes immense, far beyond what most familiar forms of life could endure. Yet certain animals inhabit these depths comfortably, their bodies adapted to conditions that would destroy unprotected structures in an instant. Pressure in the ocean builds as each layer of water rests upon the one beneath it. At several thousand meters below the surface, the force surrounding a living organism becomes hundreds of times greater than the pressure experienced at sea level. Any pocket of gas would compress rapidly under such conditions, collapsing structures that depend on air-filled spaces. Animals that inhabit these regions avoid this problem by eliminating gas cavities almost entirely. Instead, their bodies consist largely of water and soft tissues that compress only slightly under increasing pressure. Because fluids resist compression differently than gases, the internal environment of these animals remains stable even as the external force rises. Flexibility plays an important role in this survival strategy. Bones, when present, are often lighter and less rigid than those of many shallow water species. Muscles and connective tissues maintain structures that can bend and adapt to pressure rather than resisting it. The overall result is a body capable of withstanding immense forces without suffering structural damage. At the microscopic level, cells must also cope with the effects of extreme pressure. High pressure can interfere with the normal function of proteins, the complex molecules responsible for carrying out nearly every biological process. When compressed too strongly, These molecules may lose their proper shape, preventing them from performing their tasks. Deep-sea organisms solve this challenge through specialized biochemical adaptations. Their cells contain compounds that help stabilize proteins under intense pressure. Among these substances are molecules such as trimethylamine N-oxide, often abbreviated as TMAO. This compound helps maintain the correct folding of proteins, allowing them to continue functioning despite the surrounding compression. The concentration of these stabilizing molecules tends to increase with depth. Animals living deeper in the ocean often carry higher levels of such compounds within their tissues, providing additional protection for cellular processes. Through this gradual adjustment, life adapts to conditions that grow steadily more extreme with each descending kilometer. Membranes surrounding cells also require careful adaptation. Under high pressure, these membranes can become too rigid, disrupting the movement of molecules in and out of the cell. To counter this effect, deep-sea organisms adjust the composition of fats within their membranes, preserving the flexibility required for normal cellular activity. Together, these biochemical and structural adaptations create bodies that function reliably, even under immense pressure. The animals that possess them move through environments where the surrounding force would collapse many human-built machines. Some species living in these depths appear almost delicate, with gelatinous bodies that drift quietly through the water. Others possess firmer shapes, yet remain carefully balanced against the pressure surrounding them. Regardless of their form, each carries within its cells the molecular tools needed to survive. Life at such depths demonstrates how evolution can reshape organisms to meet conditions that initially seem impossible. Over countless generations, the combination of flexible structures and pressure-resistant chemistry allows animals to inhabit parts of the ocean that remain among the most physically demanding environments on Earth. Within these profound depths, the immense weight of the ocean presses silently on every surface, yet the creatures adapted to this realm continue their slow movements, sustained by biological designs refined to endure the crushing forces surrounding them. At the greatest depths of the ocean, where the seafloor plunges into long, narrow trenches, the environment becomes even more extreme than the surrounding abyssal plains. These trenches descend many thousands of meters below the surface, forming some of the deepest landscapes on Earth. Within this remote region lives a fish that holds the record for the deepest known vertebrate ever observed. This animal is known as the Mariana snailfish. It inhabits the lower slopes of ocean trenches, including areas more than 8,000 meters beneath the surface. At such depths, the weight of water above creates pressures that exceed 1,000 times the force experienced at sea level. Yet the snailfish moves through this environment with quiet ease, adapted to conditions that few other vertebrates can tolerate. The body of the Mariana snailfish appears delicate and almost translucent. Unlike many fish with firm skeletons and muscular shapes, this species possesses a soft, gelatinous structure that helps it remain stable under immense pressure. The tissues contain high amounts of fluid and relatively little dense bone, reducing the risk of structural damage. Its head is small and rounded, with simple features suited to the dim conditions of trench environments. The eyes remain modest in size, reflecting the extremely limited light available at such depths. Rather than relying heavily on vision, the fish depends on subtle sensory cues within the surrounding water. The fins extend outward in thin, flexible shapes that allow the animal to glide slowly just above the seafloor. Movements remain calm and economical, conserving energy in a place where food resources remain scarce. Instead of rapid bursts of swimming, the snailfish drifts quietly across the trench floor, following the contours of the sediment. Within the tissues of its body, specialized molecules help maintain the stability of proteins under crushing pressure. Compounds such as trimethylamine N-oxide accumulate in higher concentrations than in shallower species. These molecules assist in preserving the proper structure of proteins, ensuring that cellular processes continue to function despite the immense forces surrounding the animal. The snailfish also avoids large gas-filled spaces within its body. Many shallow water fish use swim bladders to control buoyancy, but such structures would collapse instantly at trench depths. Instead, the snailfish maintains buoyancy through its soft tissues and carefully balanced internal chemistry. Food in trench environments often arrives as fragments of organic material drifting down from higher levels of the ocean. Small crustaceans and other invertebrates gather along the seafloor to feed on these deposits. The Mariana snailfish, in turn, feeds on these tiny animals, locating them among the sediments with gentle movements of its mouth and fins. Observations of these fish have been made using specialized deep-sea exploration vehicles capable of descending into the trenches. Cameras carried by these vehicles have recorded snailfish moving calmly across the seafloor, their pale bodies contrasting softly with the darker sediment around them. Despite their ability to survive at remarkable depths, snailfish appear to have an upper limit beyond which vertebrate life becomes difficult to sustain. The concentration of stabilizing molecules required to protect proteins increases steadily with depth, and eventually the chemical balance needed for survival becomes difficult to maintain. For this reason, the Mariana snailfish represents the edge of what vertebrate physiology can achieve within the deep ocean. Its existence demonstrates how evolution can adapt complex animals to environments once thought completely uninhabitable. Within the immense trenches carved into the ocean floor, this small fish continues its quiet movements through the sedimented valleys of the deep, living at depths where the pressure of the ocean presses down with extraordinary force. Along certain edges of the ocean floor, the landscape suddenly descends into immense valleys that cut deep into the Earth's crust. These formations stretch for thousands of kilometers, narrow yet astonishingly deep, forming some of the most dramatic structures on the planet. Known as ocean trenches, they mark places where the crust of the Earth bends and sinks beneath another tectonic plate. The deepest of these formations is the Mariana Trench in the western Pacific Ocean. Its lowest point, often called Challenger Deep, reaches nearly 11,000 meters beneath the ocean surface. If the tallest mountains on land were placed inside this trench, their peaks would still remain far below sea level. Ocean trenches form at the boundaries where tectonic plates converge. As one plate slowly slides beneath another in a process known as subduction, the descending edge pulls the seafloor downward, carving a long depression along the boundary. Over millions of years, these processes shape trenches into steep-sided valleys that extend across great distances. Within these depths, the environment becomes even more extreme than the surrounding abyssal plains. Pressure rises to immense levels, temperatures remain consistently cold, and the darkness is complete. Yet even here life persists, forming communities adapted to conditions unlike those found anywhere else in the ocean. Because trenches lie far below most other marine habitats, they often function as isolated ecosystems. The steep walls surrounding them create barriers that limit the movement of many animals from neighboring regions. As a result, species living within one trench may differ from those inhabiting another, even when the formations lie relatively close together. The seafloor within trenches is typically covered with fine sediments that accumulate gradually over time. Organic material, drifting downward from the upper ocean, settles into these deep basins, providing a steady, if limited, supply of nutrients for organisms living there. Certain animals have adapted specifically to these environments. Small crustaceans, worms, and specialized fish inhabit the trench floor, feeding on organic particles or on each other within this quiet ecosystem. Some species display bodies with soft tissues and biochemical adaptations that allow them to function under extraordinary pressure. Despite the presence of life, much of the trench environment remains unexplored. The depth alone creates immense challenges for scientific investigation. Equipment must withstand crushing forces while operating in complete darkness and near freezing temperatures. Only a handful of crude submersibles have ever reached the deepest parts of these trenches. Robotic exploration vehicles have extended the reach of researchers, but even these missions cover only small areas of the vast trench systems scattered across the world's oceans. Because exploration remains limited, scientists continue to encounter new organisms during many trench expeditions. Each descent reveals animals that have adapted to conditions rarely experienced elsewhere on Earth. Some possess translucent bodies or delicate appendages suited to the still waters of the trench floor. The isolation of these environments allows evolutionary processes to shape unique communities over long periods of time. Species may develop traits found nowhere else, reflecting the distinctive pressures of their habitat. Beyond the Mariana Trench, other deep formations extend across the Pacific and other oceans. The Tonga Trench, the Philippine Trench, and several others descend thousands of meters into the crust, forming additional pockets of deep ocean habitat that remain only partially explored. Together, these trenches represent some of the least visited places on the planet. Hidden beneath vast layers of water, they form quiet worlds shaped by geological forces and inhabited by life adapted to the most profound depths of the ocean. Occasionally, the cameras of a deep-sea exploration vehicle capture an animal that no one has seen before. The creature may drift past the lens for only a few seconds before disappearing into the darkness beyond the lights. It leaves behind a brief recording, a fragile glimpse of a form that scientists may not encounter again for many years. Encounters like this happen surprisingly often in the deep ocean. Many animals living in these depths remain so rare that they have been observed only once or a handful of times. Some appear in a single video frame, their bodies moving slowly through the water before fading from view. Without additional observations, understanding how these organisms live becomes a difficult challenge. Among the most mysterious are the delicate gelatinous creatures that inhabit the open water far from the seafloor. Their bodies are composed largely of transparent tissues that can tear easily when disturbed. Traditional sampling methods, such as nets, often damage these animals before they can be examined carefully. For much of scientific history, this fragility meant that many species remained almost completely unknown. Nets brought back fragments or distorted remains that offered little information about how the animals appeared in their natural state. Only with the arrival of remotely operated vehicles and advanced underwater cameras did researchers begin to see these organisms intact. Even with modern technology, however, studying them remains complicated. Many gelatinous animals collapse when exposed to changes in pressure or temperature during the journey to the surface. By the time they reach the deck of a research vessel, their original structure may have changed significantly. Because of this, scientists often rely on direct observation rather than physical specimens. Cameras capture the movements, shapes, and behaviors of animals as they drift through the water. Researchers analyze these recordings carefully, searching for patterns that might reveal how the organisms feed, reproduce, or interact with their surroundings. Some of these creatures appear almost unreal in their structure. Certain species possess long trailing appendages that extend many times the length of their bodies. Others display transparent bells or delicate ribbons that pulse gently as they move. Many seem to exist on the edge between solid form and fluid motion. Occasionally, an animal recorded during one expedition remains unidentified for years until another expedition captures a similar image. By comparing these observations, scientists gradually piece together a clearer understanding of the organism. In other cases, the animal may remain known only from a single observation. Without additional sightings, its full life cycle, diet, and habitat preferences remain uncertain. These rare appearances serve as reminders of how much of the deep ocean still remains unexplored. The vast scale of the ocean contributes to this uncertainty. Even extensive expeditions can examine only a tiny fraction of the total volume of deep water. Entire populations of organisms may exist far from the paths traveled by research vehicles. Because of this limited access, many deep-sea species remain known only through brief encounters. Their lives unfold quietly in places that scientific instruments reach only occasionally. Each new exploration therefore carries the possibility of revealing another unfamiliar form drifting through the darkness. Some will eventually become well-studied members of the deep ocean community. Others may remain mysterious figures recorded only once, their existence preserved in a few moments of video captured far beneath the surface of the sea. Far below the surface, where the water opens into immense, silent space, an enormous shape sometimes drifts slowly through the darkness. Its body appears soft and pale, expanding outward like a floating bell. From beneath this dome extend several long arms that trail behind it through the water, stretching downward in gentle curves that seem almost endless. This rare creature is known as the giant phantom jellyfish. Unlike many jellyfish that live closer to the surface, the giant phantom jellyfish inhabits the deep open ocean, far from coastlines and reefs. Encounters with it are extremely uncommon. Most sightings have occurred only when remotely operated vehicles descend through these remote layers during scientific exploration. When the animal appears on camera, its movement is calm and deliberate. The bell pulses slowly, pushing the jellyfish forward in quiet bursts that ripple outward through its delicate body. Between these pulses, the creature drifts peacefully, suspended in the vast water around it. The most striking feature of the giant phantom jellyfish is the length of its trailing arms. 4 primary appendages extend from beneath the bell, each one stretching many meters into the surrounding water. These arms lack the dense clusters of stinging tentacles that characterize many other jellyfish species. Instead, they function as elongated feeding structures that capture small drifting animals. As the jellyfish moves, its arms spread gently through the water, forming a loose network that gathers tiny crustaceans and other planktonic creatures drifting nearby. When prey comes into contact with the arms, the jellyfish slowly draws the appendages inward. The captured organisms are guided toward the mouth, located at the center of the bell's underside. From there, digestion begins within the simple internal cavity of the animal's body. Despite its impressive size, the giant phantom jellyfish remains extremely delicate. Much of its body consists of gelatinous tissue composed largely of water. This structure allows the animal to maintain buoyancy while expending minimal energy during movement. Because of this fragile composition, traditional collection methods often damage the animal before it can be studied closely. For this reason, most scientific knowledge about the species comes from direct observations recorded by underwater cameras rather than from physical specimens brought to the surface. These rare recordings reveal a creature that appears almost ghost-like as it drifts through the darkness. The bell glows faintly under artificial light, while the long arms trail behind like pale ribbons moving gently with the surrounding currents. Researchers have observed giant phantom jellyfish at depths exceeding 1,000 meters, though their full range may extend even deeper. The vastness of the open ocean means that large areas where these animals might live remain unexplored. Because sightings occur so infrequently, many details of the jellyfish's life remain uncertain. Scientists continue to study recorded footage to understand its feeding behavior, movement patterns, and possible role within deep ocean ecosystems. Each new observation adds a small piece to the puzzle of how this remarkable animal lives in the dark water far below the surface. Yet much about the giant phantom jellyfish remains unknown, including how often it appears, how it reproduces, and how widely it may be distributed across the deep ocean. Within the immense depths where exploration vehicles occasionally pass, the giant phantom jellyfish continues its slow and silent journey. Its broad bell rises and falls in gentle rhythm, while its extraordinary arms extend through the water behind it, forming one of the most mysterious silhouettes ever recorded in the hidden world of the deep sea. Long before any human eye could witness the deepest parts of the ocean, the seafloor existed as a hidden landscape known only through scattered measurements and distant echoes of sound. For centuries, the great depths remained unreachable, sealed beneath immense pressure and darkness. Only with the development of specialized exploration technology did it become possible to travel into these remote regions and observe the life living there. Modern exploration of the deep ocean relies on two primary types of vehicles. Some are crude submersibles designed to carry scientists directly into the depths. Others are remotely operated vehicles, often called ROVs, which descend without passengers and are controlled from research ships at the surface. Crude submersibles resemble small spherical chambers surrounded by thick protective shells. These pressure-resistant spheres are constructed from materials such as titanium or specially reinforced steel. Their walls must be strong enough to withstand the crushing force exerted by the water at great depths. Inside the submersible, scientists sit within a compact cabin equipped with observation windows and instruments for recording data. Bright lights mounted on the exterior illuminate the surrounding darkness, revealing the sea floor and the animals moving through the water nearby. One of the most famous early examples of such exploration occurred in 1960, when a bathyscaphe named Trieste descended into the deepest known part of the Mariana Trench. During this historic journey, two explorers reached a depth of nearly 11,000 meters, demonstrating that human-made vehicles could survive the immense pressure of the ocean's deepest environments. While crude submersibles offer the advantage of direct observation, they remain limited by space and safety considerations. For this reason, many modern expeditions rely heavily on remotely operated vehicles. These robotic machines are connected to research vessels by long cables that transmit power, video signals, and control commands. An ROV descends slowly through the water column, while operators guide its movements from the ship above. Cameras mounted on the vehicle transmit live video that allows scientists to explore the seafloor in real time. Mechanical arms attached to the front of the vehicle can collect samples of rocks, sediments, and living organisms. These robotic explorers are capable of remaining underwater for extended periods, often working at depths that would be difficult or dangerous for crewed vehicles. Their designs allow engineers to install a wide range of scientific instruments that measure temperature, chemical composition, and other environmental conditions. Reaching the deepest parts of the ocean presents significant technological challenges. Pressure increases rapidly with depth, placing immense stress on equipment. Even small imperfections in structural materials can lead to failure when exposed to such forces. Electronics must also function reliably in cold temperatures and complete darkness. Protective housings shield sensitive components from water intrusion, while specialized lighting systems illuminate the surrounding environment without overwhelming delicate animals. Navigation presents another challenge. Satellite signals cannot penetrate deep water, so vehicles rely on acoustic systems and onboard sensors to determine their position relative to the seafloor and the surface vessel. Despite these difficulties, advances in engineering continue to expand the reach of deep-sea exploration. Each expedition reveals new details about the landscapes and ecosystems hidden beneath the ocean's immense depth. Through the quiet descent of submersibles and the careful movements of robotic vehicles, scientists gradually illuminate a world that remained inaccessible for most of human history, bringing the remote seafloor into view one expedition at a time. Each year, long after research vessels return from their expeditions, scientists begin the slow work of examining the images, samples, and recordings gathered during their journeys. In laboratories and museums far from the ocean, unfamiliar shapes appear again on screens and specimen trays. Some of these organisms match species already known to science. Others reveal forms that no one has previously described. Discovering new species in the deep ocean has become a steady and ongoing process. Expeditions, exploring seamounts, trenches, coral gardens, and open water habitats, frequently encounter animals that differ from anything recorded before. Some discoveries appear small and subtle, requiring careful analysis to recognize that they represent entirely new species. Others reveal striking forms whose uniqueness becomes immediately clear. This continuous discovery reflects how little of the deep ocean has been examined directly. The vast majority of the seafloor remains unexplored, and even the water column above it contains enormous volumes that have never been surveyed closely. Compared with terrestrial environments or shallow coastal waters, the deep sea remains largely uncharted. One reason for this limited knowledge lies in the sheer size of the ocean. The deep ocean covers a greater area than all continents combined, and much of it lies thousands of meters below the surface. Even with modern technology, exploration vessels can examine only small sections during each expedition. Another challenge comes from the diversity of habitats scattered across the seafloor. Underwater mountains, hydrothermal vents, trench slopes, coral forests, and vast sediment plains each support their own communities of organisms. A species living on one isolated seamount may never appear in another region hundreds of kilometers away. Because of this isolation, deep ocean ecosystems often contain species found nowhere else on Earth. When researchers explore a new location, the animals they encounter may represent entirely new branches of life adapted to that specific environment. Advances in technology have expanded the ability to reach these remote places. Improved remotely operated vehicles and autonomous underwater systems now allow scientists to explore deeper and remain underwater for longer periods than earlier generations of equipment. High-resolution cameras capture detailed images of animals in their natural habitats, while sampling tools collect specimens for closer study. Genetic analysis then allows researchers to compare newly discovered organisms with known species, revealing hidden diversity that might not be visible through appearance alone. These methods have led to a steady stream of discoveries. Each year, scientists formally describe dozens of new species from the deep ocean, and many more remain under investigation in research collections around the world. The pace of discovery is also increasing as more nations and research institutions invest in ocean exploration. International collaborations allow scientists to share equipment, expertise, and data from expeditions conducted across different parts of the globe. As exploration expands, new habitats continue to reveal unfamiliar life. A deep coral reef, explored for the first time, may contain fish and invertebrates unknown to science. A previously unvisited hydrothermal vent may host microbial communities unlike any documented before. Even regions that have been visited in the past can still yield new discoveries when examined more closely. Improved imaging techniques reveal small organisms that earlier cameras could not detect, while genetic tools uncover species that appear identical to the eye but differ at the molecular level. The deep ocean, therefore, remains a frontier where discovery continues almost every year. Each expedition adds new pieces to the growing record of life, inhabiting the largest environment on the planet. Far beneath the surface, in places where human exploration has only just begun, countless organisms still drift, crawl, and grow unnoticed. With each descent into these depths, the possibility remains that another unfamiliar form will appear within the glow of a submersible's lights, waiting to become the next species added to the record of life on Earth. In quiet laboratories overlooking distant coastlines, scientists sometimes pause over images that seem almost impossible at first glance. Creatures appear whose shapes do not resemble familiar animals, whose behaviors do not follow patterns long assumed to guide life beneath the sea. The deeper the ocean is studied, the more often such moments occur. For much of scientific history, the deep ocean was imagined as a place where life struggled merely to endure. The cold, darkness, and crushing weight of water suggested an environment too harsh to support complex ecosystems. Early theories proposed that animals living far below sunlight would be sparse and simple, surviving only in scattered pockets where food occasionally arrived. Yet each descent into deeper water gradually reshaped that picture. Cameras lowered into the abyss began to reveal communities thriving where earlier generations believed little could exist. Delicate organisms drifted through water columns that seemed empty from above. Strange predators moved across sediment plains. Entire ecosystems clustered around chemical vents and rocky ridges. These discoveries revealed that extreme environments often encourage unexpected solutions rather than simple scarcity. In darkness, where sunlight never reaches, animals evolved entirely different strategies for finding food, locating partners, and avoiding predators. Some developed luminous organs that glow softly within the water, producing signals invisible from afar yet meaningful to nearby eyes. Others adapted bodies that seem fragile yet perform remarkably well under pressure. Flexible tissues and specialized cellular chemistry allow certain animals to remain active in depths where rigid structures would fail. What appears delicate in shallow water may become perfectly suited for conditions thousands of meters below. The deep ocean has also revealed feeding strategies that once seemed improbable. Animals that drift slowly through near-empty water manage to capture nourishment through elaborate traps, extended filaments, or patient ambush. In some regions, entire communities rely on faint rains of organic particles sinking from distant surface waters. In others, life depends on chemical reactions that replace the role of sunlight entirely. Such discoveries continue to challenge long-standing assumptions about where life can exist and how it can function. Each unexpected organism forces scientists to reconsider ideas formed from studying more familiar environments near the surface or on land. Even the structure of deep ocean ecosystems has proven more complex than once imagined. Instead of isolated animals scattered across barren plains, researchers now observe networks of interaction between predators, scavengers, microbial communities, and drifting organisms passing through the water column above. These networks remain difficult to study in detail. Many animals appear only briefly within the reach of cameras before vanishing again into darkness. Others exist in habitats that remain rarely visited, separated by vast distances of unexplored seafloor. Because of this, each observation carries unusual importance. A single sighting can reveal behaviors never recorded before, while one fragile specimen may represent an entire species previously unknown to science. The rarity of encounters leaves many questions open, allowing mystery to remain woven into every discovery. Technological improvements have steadily expanded the ability to observe these environments, yet the ocean's depth still limits how often such journeys occur. Even the most advanced research vehicles can explore only a small portion of the seafloor during a single expedition. Beyond the lights of those machines, the darkness stretches outward across landscapes that may remain unseen for decades. This combination of vast space, difficult access, and extraordinary biological adaptation ensures that the deep ocean continues to surprise those who study it. The conditions that appear most hostile often produce the most unusual forms of life, shaped slowly through generations that unfolded far from human awareness. Far below the surface, where pressure is immense and sunlight never arrives, evolution continues quietly. Within that immense darkness, countless organisms persist in ways that still challenge the boundaries of scientific expectation, revealing that the ocean's deepest realms remain among the most unpredictable environments on Earth. Far below the restless surface, beyond the reach of sunlight and weather, a vast portion of Earth continues its quiet existence. The waves above move endlessly across the planet's oceans, yet beneath them stretches a realm that remains largely unseen. Within that depth lies one of the largest living environments on the planet, unfolding in darkness that has persisted for millions of years. The deep ocean occupies most of the space available for life on Earth. Its plains, trenches, underwater mountains, and drifting waters form landscapes far larger than any continent. These environments exist far from the daily rhythms familiar at the surface, where sunlight rises and falls and seasons shift through the year. In the depths, time seems to move differently. Life continues there with remarkable patience. Creatures drift through quiet currents, settle across ancient seabeds, or glide slowly through water that rarely changes. Many species grow gradually and live long lives, shaped by cold temperatures and limited food. Movements become measured, energy carefully conserved, each action part of a slow and steady balance. Yet within that calm stillness exists an extraordinary diversity of forms. Animals glow softly in the dark, producing their own light where none exists naturally. Others hide within nearly transparent bodies, blending into the surrounding water until they vanish from sight. Some extend delicate structures into passing currents, gathering nourishment that drifts down from distant surface waters. Across rocky ridges and coral gardens, communities assemble with quiet complexity. Tiny organisms cluster together, forming habitats that shelter larger animals moving slowly across the seafloor. In deeper trenches, creatures adapted to immense pressure continue their lives in landscapes few human eyes have ever seen. These living systems remind us that life does not depend solely on familiar conditions. Even in places where sunlight never reaches and temperatures remain near freezing, evolution has shaped organisms capable of thriving in ways that once seemed unlikely. Exploration has gradually illuminated fragments of this hidden world. Submersibles descend through miles of water, their lights revealing brief glimpses of landscapes and animals that rarely encounter visitors. Cameras record drifting forms and silent movements across the seafloor, each expedition adding small pieces to a much larger picture. Yet, even with these advances, the deep ocean remains largely unexplored. Vast regions stretch far beyond the routes of research vessels. Entire valleys, ridges, and plains continue without observation, existing quietly in darkness as they have for countless generations. Because of this, the ocean's depths still hold countless discoveries waiting to be made. Unknown species may drift through waters never yet visited by human instruments. Hidden ecosystems may thrive along slopes and ridges that remain unmapped. The story of life beneath the waves is still being written, slowly revealed through careful observation and patient exploration. In this sense, the deep ocean remains one of Earth's last frontiers, not a distant planet or unreachable place, but a realm located on the same world that humans walk each day. Its existence beneath the familiar horizon offers a quiet reminder that our understanding of the planet is still incomplete. Far below the shifting surface, life continues with calm persistence. Creatures glow, drift, crawl, and grow in waters that remain largely unseen. Within that immense darkness, entire communities carry on their slow and steady rhythms. And above them, on the bright surface of the same ocean, the waves continue to move across a planet that still holds vast and silent places waiting patiently to be understood.